you had gone back and forth from Virginia and LA, and now you're settled back here.
Yeah, I mean, I really had completely moved to California for almost 10 years. So I hadn't been back and forth. And then this year kind of was what kind of triggered a big shift in my life.
A lot of people are having a big shift in their lives this year, aren't they?
Right. Yeah.
And was it COVID related, your shift?
Partially, yeah. I mean, that was the primary reason. And I had kind of been a little bit longing for the country,
right?
Kind of careful what you wish for, I guess.
Oh, fair enough.
So yeah, that was the main reason. And it's been such a huge gift to be out, just kind of outside of society right now.
Right. Yes, I can imagine it would be. Does it feel like things changed over the last couple of months since you have a new president and COVID is kind of getting under control a little bit?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It always feels kind of chaotic no matter who's in charge.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I mean, it's way less chaotic because the he who shall not be named is gone.
All right. So the album was released in the middle of February, and it's called Acquainted with Night. So what was it like releasing the album under these circumstances?
Well, it was kind of fortunate because I haven't released an album before, so this was.
You have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, exactly. So, and also it was actually a huge gift just to have something to be doing, a reason to wake up in the morning. I mean, otherwise I would have been really depressed, I think. So it saved me from despair, that's for sure.
Well, that's good. That's a plus. We don't want any of that.
And just all the things that I had to do, I actually don't know if I would have been able to do all of them with because I had to have a couple jobs living in the city, and I was just really busy just existing. And now here, existence is cheap. So I've been able to I've got the most valuable thing that anyone could have, which is time and shelter. And so.
Very good.
So yeah.
Now, from what I've read about the album, what kind of got you motivated to make this record was your discovery of the Omnichord. Is that right? Which you don't hear a lot about these days.
Oh,
so
no, not at all.
Give us the lowdown on that.
Well, I had been searching for a specific sound that I heard on the really obscure little track on YouTube, and I could not figure out what instrument it was. And so I was going around to all my musician friends asking them what it was, and I finally came to my friend Brian Kehoe, who's a really amazing sound. He just knows everything about sound. And he figured out that it was something called a Nova chord, which was do you know about that?
No, I don't. It sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds, exactly. It sounds like something maybe you know about, but it was built in the 1940s by Hammond, but it wasn't very popular, so it didn't last very long. So it's a really specific sound that sounds like it's from the 1940s, kind of.
Right.
And then this is the long-winded story to how I get to the Omnichord, but
let it rip.
He said, unfortunately, there's only 200 of these in existence, so I don't think you're going to find them anywhere. Right. But here, borrow my Omnichord that he had stashed in his storage space, and I was completely disinterested because it's a little kind of plastic child's looking toy.
I have a feeling I may have bought one for one of my kids when they were growing up.
Well, I mean, it's a really incredible instrument I think every child should have one. Anyone really, because anybody can make music with it.
Right.
But anyway, I was really not impressed and a little bit offended. But then I brought it home, and that night I started playing it, and I was just completely enamored with it instantly. And from there, kind of songs were just kind of spilling out a bit.
Right. So what is it about that sound that it appealed to you? Because these days you can pretty much make anything sound like anything with all sorts of synthesizers and whatever, digital processing.
It's mostly my lack of education in being savvy with tech or instruments or anything. So I know that there's a whole library of infinite sounds and things, but for me, I have to kind of, it has to just show up on my doorstep basically for me to understand it. And I really appreciate organic things, even though this is a synthesizer, but it was like a solid object that I could touch that was all laid out. And
does it run on batteries, or do you plug it in?
It can, but you also can plug it in.
Okay.
But that's kind of why I love the tape cassette recording too, because it's all laid out. I can understand it. With computers, I don't really know what's happening when you where's it go? So so it's mostly my kind of archaic knowledge of instruments and technology that made me finally made it take me so long to figure out what sound worked with my voice. And that was the main reason, was that there was something about that organ pad and the drum machines too that I use sometimes, that I could control, the level of it and how it sits with my voice. Whereas I'd never really felt like I was in control of anything, especially a drummer, So this did away with my need for a drummer, which is
no comment. No one can control the drummer.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because there was one of the tracks I wanted to talk about was White Wings. I think it's the one I'm talking about.
What will you do? Who will you be with those white wings?
Which there's like some surface noise going throughout it, and I'm wondering if that's like from the use of the cassette tape, and kind of building up layers and stuff. You like the way, because I remember back in the day when in the 70s, when we were using cassettes, we'd try to do anything to noise reduction was key, so you're obviously.
Well, no, it was accidental. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. But listening back to it, it's just those kind of things that do kind of spin out of your control that I think that make the magic.
Right.
And there was no way I was going to recreate how that song feels, and the hiss and noise of it is part of what makes it feel that way to me. I mean, I completely understand if people listen to it and are like, this is terrible. Like, what is going on? So that's fine.
All right. Very cool. And so you mentioned that you feel that the Omnichord goes with your voice really well. So how did you discover that? And why it doesn't go with like a guitar or a keyboard?
Yeah. I think that, I think my voice, I've always kind of wanted a deep, gravelly, like a different voice kind of,
right.
Because I haven't found the right balance of frequency with the instrumentation, because it's all like lilting, and then it's against a lilting guitar or whatever. And then I'm getting compared with, it's kind of like takes my music into a direction that I'm not that interested in.
Right.
And so this created a pad and a texture and a lushness and kind of a counterbalance to that like lilting nature of my voice.
Right.
And it grounded it. It just felt like I'd been grounded finally. And I still play guitar and use guitar, but now I'm actually even playing guitar in a different way that's more kind of very rhythmic and it's just like on Blue Vein, where it's just kind of like a motor or a rhythm.
And we're born with a blue vein, born to the song, born just to grow wings, then to take off. I'm gonna fly.
Now you were about to kind of say that people have compared you to somebody else and then stop. And I was about to compare you to somebody else. So
Who are you gonna say?
I was going to say Mary Hopkin.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, she's the one that worked with Paul McCartney. Is that right?
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. She was on Apple Records and she was married to Tony Visconti. And she had, those were the days, my friend, we thought they'd never end. And
and she did
a big hit back in '68.
She did a song that I love so much that I'm glad you reminded me because I wanted to cover it, which is Goodbye.
I thought you were going to say that. That's great. It is.
I mean, it's kind of the most popular one, I guess. But
no, that's a great song.
That's cool. No, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
I think that's like a huge compliment. So.
Oh, good. All right. Well, we're on good. And so are there other instruments in there? Like on Sliding Doors, it sounds to me like there may be a flute somewhere in there and things like that. So yeah. And are you playing them or do you have other folks helping you out?
No. And actually that's the only song, the guy who produced it named Guy Blakesley, he plays guitar on, I think 3 songs.
Right.
And then we had our friend Jose, who's an owner of Zebulon, which is a really amazing bar and a music hall out in Los Angeles.
Right.
And he's an incredible flute player, so he played on that, and that kind of is my favorite moment on the record. His flute playing.
And my understanding is you've also kind of taken to handycam videos and kind of making your own things. Is that kind of an extension of your discovery of the Omnichord?
Yeah. Well, and in fact, it's kind of a rediscovery of my childhood kind of hobby because I had that Sony Handycam in high school.
Right.
And
because everybody else is using these, you know.
Yeah, I know. And I don't even have one of those. I'll show you what I have.
All right.
I've got one of these.
Oh, yeah. I got one packed away like that somewhere that I'm keeping for a museum piece.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't have any other way to do it really.
Right.
So that's
Very cool.
But I see that I kind of create my own limitations on purpose because I think that's what's interesting about making things. So.
Right. And is there an artist that's making music that you've listened to that you kind of drew inspiration from in that kind of way of thinking about it?
Well, I guess kind of where the idea of this album came, like the sound of the album came from was through, do you know Sybil Bayer or Sybil Bayer?
I don't think so. But.
She's a German songwriter, musician from the 60s.
Okay.
But she was kind of a housewife and she was in a Wim Wenders film.
Right, okay.
And she recorded all these amazing songs in her basement as her children were growing up. And her son released a collection of them in 2010 or something.
Oh, okay.
And so it was like a lost tape. Yeah. And then upon discovering that, for me, that was an incredibly powerful album to me because it really felt like it was out of time and space because it's just her and the acoustic guitar. Right. And she's singing these like really incredibly composed songs that are they're like very advanced, and her guitar playing is incredible. And so that she was one of the inspirations for how it was recorded, because she did it on her, I think she had it wasn't a 4-track, obviously, but it was reel to reel, I guess.
Right. Well, I'll have to go Google her now and check her out.
Yeah.
That'll be fun. So now that the record's out, what are you planning next? Are you happy with the way it's been received and the way it's come across?
Yeah, I feel surprised and excited.
Yeah.
I think just, I've never made anything that's been broadcast to people across the world. And so receiving messages from someone in Barcelona or wherever is really novel and beautiful thing to me, because I think that's the whole reason that you make, that's not the whole reason, but that's a huge reason that people make music, especially of all the arts. I think music is meant to reach out,
Yeah. And what are you getting from the folks who are listening? What are they getting from your music?
I think it's what the Sub Pop people kind of said from the beginning, that because when they received the album, it was just at the beginning and height of the pandemic in March 2020.
Yeah.
And they said it was a source of great solace and kind of something to retreat to a little bit. And so I think that the most amazing thing that I just received was a message from someone in Syria, who it was his 30th birthday and he was all alone because he couldn't be with his family and friends. And he said that it kind of came up on an algorithm and he wasn't that interested. And then he listened again, and then it became like this companion for him while he was having his really sad birthday. And that it felt like a gift, and so that, I was crying. That's so beautiful to me. That means, and someone in Syria who I would never.
And it's interesting because you're so low-fi and low tech, and yet here's this guy in Syria who's discovered you because some algorithm was created that nobody understands.
How did that happen?
That's pretty cool. So yeah, it all works together eventually. Then you kind of end the album on a somewhat optimistic note with a song called "Some Sunny Day."
Some sunny day, I will wake up smiling. I've taken my time, lifting the pages, petal pressed roses of the past.
Yeah, that's kind of, well, it was the last one to get chosen for the record, actually, and I was ending on a more somber note, kind of, and realized that it would be better to kind of lift it to this space and be kind of like just kind of leave with some momentum a little bit. And that song, I feel like that song is a really good transition into the next collection of songs that I'm working on.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So that was kind of a happy accident, but yeah, it's the story of that one.
So you're looking forward to are you going to do the next one on the Omnichord, or are you expanding your electronic horizons?
I know, it's funny because you don't want to get pigeonholed into she's the Omnichord girl,
Right.
But yes, I will expand more, but definitely that will be a critical part of it still. Right. So yeah.
And I'm guessing that kind of living in LA influenced these songs, so maybe living in Virginia is going to affect what you're going to do next. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
Very good. Oh, well, thank you for taking time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. And
thank you.
Hopefully you can get out and play your music in front of some real people sometime.
I know. I think it'll happen.
Yeah, it's got to happen.
We got to. I know. Well, thank you. I hope you have a lovely day over there. And
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.